Duchenne muscular dystrophy and the central nervous system. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is an X-linked disease that mainly affects young boys. We know that DNA is transcribed to RNA, which is translated to proteins. When we have a frameshift mutation on the gene that encodes for a certain protein, the whole process of transcription and translation will be affected, and we won't be able to make a correct and functioning protein. For those with DMD, the dystrophin protein is absent from their sarcolemma. Without this protein, the muscle does not have a connection of the cytosolic actin to the extracellular matrix, and it is vulnerable to contraction-induced injury. With this muscle damage, those with DMD are unfortunately not able to use their muscles and must be in wheelchairs by the age of 10. While the muscular aspect is one of the main focuses of this disease, the effects it can have on the central nervous system as well as brain function is important to note as well. Those with DMD present with cognitive impairments to go along with impaired muscle movement. When compared to the mean IQ of those without DMD, DMD patients are one standard deviation below. They have an average score of 80 compared to the mean of 100. DMD patients also have other impairments. They have reduced brain volumes, reduced verbal memory, and reduced academic skills, as well as a susceptibility to other disorders such as ADHD, autism, and OCD. So what contributes to these cognitive impairments? Our body uses sugar molecules like glucose to attain energy that it can use to carry out its everyday functions. The process of glycolysis takes glucose and creates ATP. ATP is a source of high energy that can be hydrolyzed to run many reactions inside our body. Many chemical reactions in our body are coupled to the hydrolyzation of ATP, so without being able to turn glucose into ATP would be pretty bad. Our brain's main energy source is glucose, and if certain areas of the brain are not able to attain enough glucose, then they will not attain enough ATP. That area that is experiencing hypoglycemia will have impaired functioning. In patients with DMD, they are shown to have reduced glucose uptake in critical brain areas that are involved in muscle movements as well as cognitive functioning. PET scans showed decreased glucose uptake in the cerebellum, which regulates muscle movement. There was also shown to be decreased glucose uptake in other temporal cortical areas that are associated with cognitive and behavioral impairments. Could this be because of a diversion in the brain's priorities, since DMD patients cannot move and will give its glucose molecules to other areas of the brain? With this, we see a link between the disease's effects on glucose uptake in the brain and cognitive impairments. Also associated with DMD is a decrease in GABA receptor clusters in the brain. GABA receptors are inhibitory neurons that usually release chloride into the postsynaptic neuron, hyperpolarizing it and preventing it from firing an action potential. GABA receptors can be found in cerebellar Purkinje fibers that help to regulate muscle control. When the amount of receptors in the cerebellum are affected, there will be a disruption in motor control. The disruption may account for a patient's inability to learn any compensatory mechanisms for muscle damage. So there is a possibility that this decreased amount of GABA receptors contributes to the worsening ability of patients to stay ambulated and be in control of their muscle fibers. GABA receptors are also crucial in maintaining non-REM sleep. When GABA is able to bind to GABA receptors in brain areas that are involved with wakefulness, they inhibit these areas and make sure that the patient stays asleep. If there is no GABA binding, the patient will have a hard time maintaining sleep. The sleep cycle is disrupted, and DMD patients will be prone to sleep disorders. Research has shown that many DMD patients also have sleep disorders. This could help explain the altered brain metabolism, as sleep is necessary for overall brain health. So what do all these evidence show? These central nervous system development issues show that there are many possible areas that can be contributing to the inhibition of muscle function that occurs in DMD patients. Because of these brain abnormalities, they may be unable to create compensatory mechanisms that could possibly help them regenerate muscle fibers and/or learn motor skills. The sleep disorders can also contribute to lack of brain health, leading to the cognitive impairments that we see in DMD patients. It is important to see that we cannot ignore the central nervous system when we talk about patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Thank you.